Welcome to another ChaseBays install. We are installing a E36 clutch line today. This clutch line actually will cover pretty much installing any of the BMW lines. The master cylinder connection is going to be exactly the same for all the chassis. It's that quick disconnect style. The slave cylinder side is going to be pretty similar. The only difference is on some of the slaves, the port faces a different way, so your hose may look a little bit different than this hose if you're installing it on like an E46 or an E30. This car, E36 coupe, nice little car. Blew out the factory clutch line. Those lines suck. Got a ChaseBays line for this. That's your slave side. That is the master cylinder side. So we're gonna walk you through this. I brought in some extra hands today. Steve-O, he's gonna help me get this installed and show you exactly what's going on and how to do this. So here we go. First thing you're going to want to do is you're going to need to remove this panel here under the dash. There's going to be two Phillips, one here, and then this should be loose, and then it will come out. We'll get those Phillips pulled out, and then we'll show you pulling that panel. Got a zip tie on there. This one had a zip tie in the way. We're going to go ahead and cut that and get that undone as well. You will have a couple connectors under here, so just make sure you unplug those connectors when you're pulling the panel out. There goes the panel. Now, there is one more that makes things a little bit easier. This guy, you'll see that there. There are just a couple of 10mm bolts. You'll undo that, and then that opens up a lot more space under here. It really allows you to kind of see everything here. So what we need to do, and the easiest way that I have found to do this, is by removing the master cylinder, unbolting it to get to the clip that holds the hard line in. So there are two 10mm bolts on the top side of the master cylinder that you'll undo, and then there's a pin, sorry it's not focusing here, there's a pin that goes right through that hole. It is this pin. You'll undo this clip from one side, this pin will slide out, and then the master cylinder will be undone. At this point, what we're going to do is we're going to pull the master cylinder towards the inside of the car so that we can access the clip that is holding the hard line into the master cylinder. This is where we're at now. Essentially what we did is we disconnected the feed hose up here from the port that goes on top. Make sure you have the fluid reservoir under the hood. This does get fed off of the brake master cylinder, so just make sure that fluid reservoir is low enough to where you're not going to get a bunch of fluid pouring on the inside of your car when you undo that hose. And then what we do, which is a lot easier, is just pull this fairly hard until the brake master, or I'm sorry, the clutch master comes through the firewall, and you can get to the clip there on the left. There is a small clip, this guy. Use the pick or something equivalent to pull that clip out. And then once you have that out, you'll be able to kind of just twist and pull, and we have the master cylinder in our hand. So what we're going to do next is we're going to get under the car. We're going to undo the clutch line from the other end at the transmission and pull that hard line and all that stuff out of the car. That way we can hook up our ChaseBays clutch line to the master cylinder. We'll feed the new clutch line through this hole and down to the transmission itself. So next step, let's get under the car. Okay, now we have slid under the car. Next step's going to be undoing the line. This line goes up to the slave cylinder here. This is an 11 millimeter here. You will undo this, and then you will go forward, and there's a bracket here. On the other side of this bracket is another one of those line nuts, just like the one you just took off of the slave. It is also an 11 millimeter. You're going to take that off, and then you'll pull the rubber hose and all that stuff out of the way. This hard line that's going up to the top will also get removed. The ChaseBays line replaces this whole thing. So go ahead and get that pulled out once you have it disconnected here. And then the next step will be to feed in our new ChaseBays line.
Now is it?
Yes. All right, so we've got this line out. This was the end that went to the master cylinder that we undid from the top. This is the end that goes into the slave cylinder. And this is that middle section here. So on ours, it got a little tight, so we tried to undo this 11 and it was spinning this bottom side. So you can grab a 17 wrench and hold this line while breaking this one loose. And then essentially you can hold a wrench on this side and then just spin this hose off, or get in there and undo this and take that out. Something we need to discuss. We've already known we need to do this. I haven't brought it up at this point, but essentially if you have this long style master cylinder, it will not fit with the ChaseBays line. This hole on the end is too small. You will need this shorter version master cylinder. So that is the reason why we did pull the master cylinder out of this car. If your car does have this shorter master cylinder, changing that clutch line is going to be a whole lot easier for you. Here is the part number of the master cylinder you will need to get if you have the incorrect style. So make sure you get that one ordered. It is notated on ChaseBays website that this does happen, that this one does not work. This is the style you need to get. So just make sure you pay attention to that, and make sure you're prepared before you rip your whole car apart and disable your vehicle. So what we're going to do now is we'll get this one installed, we'll put the clutch line in, and then we'll route it into the underside of the car and get it all plumbed up, and then we'll bleed it. So as I showed you before, we had to swap out this master cylinder for the short version. And that's what you should be looking at once you get it all back together. You can see our line. I hooked it up and then fed it through the firewall. We got our hose feed hooked back up. We got our clevis pin there and our return spring put back into place. Now we've got this end threaded into the slave cylinder. It got routed about where the OE hose went. And then yeah, you hook that up, tighten it down. Once you have that line installed in the last frame, you will do the bleeding procedure. To bleed the system, you're going to use 2 people to do this. You will have 1 person in the car and 1 person underneath the car at the slave cylinder. You will make sure the brake fluid is topped off and full. You will have the person in the car pump the pedal, hold the pedal to the floor, open the bleeder underneath the car at the slave cylinder, close the bleeder, pump the pedal. You'll repeat that process probably about 8 to 10 times to make sure you get all of the air out of the system. While you're doing that, you're going to want to make sure that the fluid in the reservoir stays topped off enough to where it does not drop below the feed port. So just make sure you keep an eye on that, get it all bled out. If you have any questions at all, drop a comment down below with a question. I'll make sure to get that answered for you. Like, share, subscribe, and keep following along. Thank you.